All right, joining me now here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is Rick Overton. Rick is a stand-up comedian, a satirist, an actor, and Emmy Award-winning writer, as well as the host of the podcast Overview with Rick Overton, all of which and more you can find at rickoverton.net. You can also find him on Twitter at Rick Overton. Rick, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Hey, thank you for having me on, Matthew. I'm a fan of yours. I think what you have to say is really important, and you say it in a great way. That's the formula right there. Say important things in a good way.
Well, Rick, I'd like to start out today by asking, I guess, sort of your general thoughts of the intersection of comedy and politics and comedy and activism. So what are just some, just kind of your broad thoughts on the topic?
Well, broad thoughts on it are that if you write what you know, and that's what you know, you got to write it. They say write what you're thinking about. That'll be your best act, is if you're already naturally inclined to think about it. That's probably the closest to who you'll be. Your act, the reason they say it takes a comic 10 years to find their voice, that's sort of a vague way of saying it's knowing what your opinions are. And it takes 10 years to know your opinion. You're not going to defend everything you thought when you're 19 now. You'll defend some of it, but somebody's thinking, that was the kid's version of that thought. I can't really stick. It doesn't look right, me sticking with it now. So I would hope as one grows, their compassion grows, their knowledge of what is actually happening around them grows. Those two things build up to be, your act isn't just something that made people feel good, but it made them think. There are great acts that just make you feel good. And it's like a medicine cabinet. It's not all one pill. Different pills fix different things, and some fix a lot of things. And I think a social comic fixes lots of things. You're sort of a multi-purpose aspirin kind of guy, you know?
Why do you think it is that there are, there are obviously really great political and social comics out there, but there are not a lot of them. Why do you think that is?
It's not as easy. You get the heck knocked out of you for it, you know?
Yeah.
And they'll say, someone will go, oh yeah, well what about Jon Stewart? What about Stephen Colbert? What about Bill Maher? And I'll go, okay, that's three. You named three out of how many comics are there?
Right.
You can't count the amount of comics. There's no way to quantify how many comics there are out there. Thousands and thousands of them, because it was a good idea. To be a comic is a good idea because you'll have, if you're good at it, if you're naturally inclined to do it, everyone will think it's the hardest job in the world, but you'll know, yeah, if you're not naturally inclined, it is. Otherwise, this is the best, smartest thing I could have done for myself, was go to the job that allows me to maybe get paid for the thing I'd be doing for free. So I just want to make the point that if you can add on in that luxury, that you can return the favor of a society that gave you this much luxury, is to point out when they're getting robbed. Now, not everyone likes having that pointed out, because it means in the subconscious to the person listening, it says to them, you're stupid, you missed it, and Smarty Pants, who your girlfriend is laughing at on stage, got it right and you got it wrong. And you just lost all alpha status. That's not fun for some guys, and they'd rather make the messenger the problem. But that's the reasoning behind it, I think.
That's really interesting. That's a really interesting way of looking at this, and why social comedy, it's not just necessarily the ideas, but there's also just the sort of the threat of not being the smartest guy in the room, or not being as the alpha, as you put it, and how that makes some people feel just automatically threatened, and why a lot of people maybe don't like it and kind of shy away from something, even though it's something that's smart and funny. It's the fact that they actually literally feel threatened by it.
Yeah, there's in a state of panic, which a lot of them are in, and they've forgotten. It's an ongoing walking pneumonia version of a shock state that they forgot they're in shock. It's like the guy whose arm is blown off and he keeps going by to open the fridge door and he can't. They've been reduced to sort of day-to-day things while they've been gut punched in a culture. We're all cultural abuse victims. We're abuse victims, and we're all PTSD at some level. In a culture that beats the hell out of us with the news and with events like 9/11, and then the crackdown and the police and all this crap, and then taking all the money away and closing the schools. This is all abuse, and we are abuse victims by a sick stepfather in office. And so, and PTSD doesn't make you make all right decisions. You can start to choose to protect the wound and favor a lot of negative things just because you think it's a salve for that wound, and you're letting all the really good stuff fall away because it's just too much, and they feel they can't even begin to take it on now. And that's really the trick, is you want to get good at knowing what people think. Walk in their shoes, experience what they might or must be feeling under the circumstances. Put yourself there. What would that put you through if you found out that you're born into a family bloodline that believes in things like George W. Bush, and you found out differently, but you can't say anything because now you're going against your parents.
Mm-hmm.
You're betraying your own last name. You just can't do it. And you're finding out, oh my God, not only was I wrong, I was staggeringly, unbelievably wrong, and now I don't even know if I want anyone else to know how wrong I was, because you won't trust me with the TV remote, much less any other decisions in my now completely ballless existence.
In your time of doing comedy, has like the kind of intersection of comedy and satire, how has it evolved over your time doing stand-up? Has it changed from when you started out to where it is today? I mean, obviously there's always been really great social critics. You look at Lenny Bruce, you look at Hicks, you look at Carlin, you look at these icons that a lot of that smart comics really look to as sort of the benchmarks of that, How has it evolved to what you see today?
Well, the world has evolved. And certainly, the media was smart enough to find some political people to put up top so that is, they have something covering it. But there's certainly more people with a different, it can't just be three people
exactly.
For all of liberality's voice. It can't just be narrowed down to three people. That's like someone else saying, you know what you are? You're the kind of guy that does this, and he leaves out all the other stuff you do because he doesn't have the RAM space to encompass it. So you can't let that definition hold you down. It's got to be your definition, and that definition has to be based on what you think you can give. You won't always get a medal for it. That's like war, and this is a war. It's a war for the IQ and soul of this nation. And very few are fighting to keep it on the upper shelves. It's being notched down and down and down to the smaller prizes at the arcade. And very few people are pushing to make us smarter again. Good comics are on the forefront. They're frontline soldiers in that.